Hey everybody, welcome to episode 67 of the Foundation First Fitness Show with Bobak on. Today we are talking specifically about ankle mobility issues and ankle restriction, specifically for runners. Now, over the last couple of episodes, I've been talking a lot about running and, a lot of the training involved in running, mobility in running, how to improve it, different things like that. And I think I'm going to kind of stay on that course a bit for the next few episodes. I really want to start kind of helping a lot of those runners out there, because I know a lot of you are listening and have been giving me some feedback on some of the stuff that I've been talking about. So I'm going to kind of keep on that. Now, today's episode is one of those episodes that I really like talking about. It's one of those areas that I really like kind of venturing into, simply because running for me is one of those things that I've always really enjoyed, and primarily sprinting. And I was always very knowledgeable about kind of the mechanics of it and how everything has to be put together. And it's one of the areas that I really like talking about. And the thing is that when I talk to, distance runners, a lot of the mechanics and the essential necessities of a runner that's running long distance versus a runner that's sprinting are all very similar. The only thing that's happening is we're slowing down the pace, and we're really just restricting and reducing the complete amount of movement. So it's not as ballistic, it's a little bit more controlled. At the same token, there is a necessity around the mobility of each individual segment. So from the ankles to the toes to the knees to the hips. So all these areas are really important, and any restriction in them is going to lead you down a road of likelihood of injury and decreased performance, as we usually talk about. Now, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is the restriction in the ankle. So what is a restriction in the ankle? Now, what it means is essentially your ankle has a full range of motion. So it can either point the toes and pull the toes all the way back up. So you're going to get this nice fluid movement at the ankle. Now, you may have nice or apparently nice fluid movement at the ankle, but once you load it and your ankle hits the ground, everything can start changing. Now, a restriction in the ankle, what that can do and why that's really important is that if you have a restriction in the ankle, what it will do is it will cause your body to go and look for something elsewhere. It will go and look for that mobility elsewhere. It's going to go and look for it everywhere else. The problem is that the two closest segments, where your feet and your knees, are not designed to be mobile. They're designed to be stable. They're designed to support you and help transfer a lot of that power and a lot of that force that you're trying to generate that's going to allow you to move forward. So when you start searching anywhere else for it, what you're doing is you're limiting those areas as well. And that cascades throughout the body, and that's where you're going to be leading yourself into injury. This is something I've really spoken about in a couple of other episodes. So if you do, or if you haven't checked out those other episodes, if you do, you'll definitely hear me kind of talk about this a bit more as well. And why I think this is really important is, or why I think this is really happening is, we spend a lot of time in restrictive shoes. So ladies, for you, high heels are one of those areas. For men, our dress shoes are really one of those areas as well. It kind of jams the toes, points them really narrow. And it doesn't allow for a lot of movement at the foot. Now, what's happening is that we pair up a lack of movement and kind of restricted movement because of our shoes, pair that up with lack of movement throughout the day because we spend so much of our day seated. Now what we're doing is we're leading ourselves down a road of lack of use throughout the day. So that limited movement that's happening throughout the day is going to carry over into our sport. When we start training, when we start running, when we're doing all those activities, that's where that restriction is going to be kind of almost made worse, from constantly not moving throughout the day to constantly trying to move it within that only small little range that it has access to, because the entire day has been spent in a tight area. So this is something that happens for a lot of individuals. Something that happens for me, it happens for everybody. Anybody that's really seated, spends a lot of time off their feet, are going to deal with it. So there's a couple of things that I like doing. Now, for those of you who have listened to literally any episode I've ever done before, the one thing, maybe not every episode, but probably 90-95% of every episode, is I talk about soft tissue. So soft tissue work being foam rolling, lacrosse ball work, anything that's going to be basically breaking apart all the adherences and starting to really create a more relaxed muscle that you can start working through. So, when we talk about when we talk about the foot, we talk about the foot, we talk about the knee, we talk about the hips. All these areas are muscles that are supporting those areas that are around that area that need to be released to allow that movement to kind of happen. And when we talk about the ankle, one of the main muscle groups that are going to go around there is going to be the calf. So you're going to want to get through that calf area. So you can use a lacrosse ball, although I wouldn't recommend using a lacrosse ball. It's not really going to get into the tissue as well as a foam roller, because you're going to need to get something that's going to be a little bit higher off the ground because of the angle that you're going to be using. The alternate solution for that is a stick roller. So some of you have probably seen this already. If you've been to a gym, therapy clinic, sports store, sporting goods store, you're going to see these things everywhere. It's basically, it looks like a rolling pin. It's about that thick. It's probably about that long. You don't really need something too big. And what you're going to do is just grab both sides and you just release the calf. Everyone's seen someone do that. If you haven't, you could check out some of my posts on ankle stuff and calf stuff for runners, and you'll see some of those stick rollers being used in there. But if you have a simple foam roller, that's more than enough. And what you can do with the foam roller is spend about 5 to 10 minutes at least twice a day really releasing it, especially if you're in a position where you limit the range of motion at the ankle. So if you're someone that's in a high heel, like ladies, if you're in high heels, what's happening is you're always in this really pointed position, so you never really explore that full range. And when your body doesn't get that exposure, it limits its movement because it only learns this small little range here. So get the foam roller going. Work through it as often as possible. I really suggest at least twice a day. The more often you do it, the more likely you are at having a nice, clean, healthy muscle, and that's what you're really looking for. The other area you're going to want to roll is the foot. I've spoken about this before. I've had Nick St. Louis from the Foot Collective on here. We've spoken about it a ton of times. Foot health is really important. And the reason why you really want to pay attention to that foot health is because the foot is so close to the ankle, anything that could be restricted there could potentially work its way up into the ankle and cause a lack of movement, because if the support underneath that ankle is not there, you're not going to be able to get the full range of motion at the ankle because it doesn't have anything to really support on. So from there, release a lot of that tissue that's underneath the foot that's coming, all that pent up tissue, that pent up tension underneath your foot. It's coming from that shoe as well. So you really want to start hitting both those areas. So the calf and right underneath the foot. Finally, get the front of the shin. So many people wait until it's too late to start really releasing the front of the shin a lot. And I don't mean the shin bone. So if I was to take my left leg, my shin's going to be coming more on the inside toward the inner portion of my body. The outer portion is where you're going to want to be rolling. There's a little bit of a muscle area there. You want a muscular area. You want to go and release through that. So again, just get down in a kneeling position with your knees, with your shins pressed against the ground. What you're going to do is put that ball right underneath there and start rolling back and forth and kind of breaking through that tissue. That's going to be the third area that I really recommend you roll out, because a lot of that, that running mechanic, it does require a lot of the front of the shin, the muscle in the front of the shin to really fire. So you want to make sure that that's getting taken care of as well. Now, after that, what I would tell you to do is train and move in wide ranges. So as much as you can, take off your shoes. Ladies, if you have the ability to take off your shoes at work, it's not a fashion thing. Don't worry about it. You're already at work. No one's going to look at you. If you're, in your cubicle, take your shoes off. Start creating movement throughout the day. Start pointing your toes, pulling them back up. As much movement as you possibly can create throughout the day. That's where you're going to be reducing the amount of stiffness. Think about it this way. How many of you have gotten into a car, you drive for 6 hours down the street, you get out of the car, your body can't move? Well, you basically sat there for like 6 hours. Your body completely forgot how to move, but you're doing this every single day. At some point, your ankle's not going to know what to do, right? Just like your body wouldn't know what to do if you drove 6 hours a day every single day. So what I would tell you to do is the more often you can quote unquote get out of the car and walk around, or take your shoes off and walk around and create some movement, the less likely you are at developing these ankle restrictions that so many people are plagued with, so many runners are plagued with. So get up, move them around. The other thing you can do is when you are at home, somewhere where you actually have some space to kind of, get down on the ground and play a little bit on the ground. What you're going to do is you're going to sit down on your shins. So you're going to basically be pointing your toes, shins flat on the ground, and you're going to be sitting on your heels. What that's going to do is just going to stretch out the front of the foot. So any restrictions, anything that's happening in the front of the ankle, we're working through that pointed toe range as much as we can. On the flip side, we're going to go in the complete other direction. putting your knee close to the wall and you're going to try to drive your knee to the wall. I'm going to be posting this on Instagram. I'm going to be posting all these little routines, I'm going to put a little routine together for you. So if you hear this episode, if you're listening to this right now, head over to Instagram after. Don't do it now, you're probably driving, but head over to the Instagram after this episode and check it out. I'm going to be posting something on ankle health. So ankle health for runners, you're going to see it posted there. And what it's going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you a couple of ankle mobility drills. I wanted to post this because I want you to be able to visually see what I'm doing. It's really important that you see it because there's a lot of individuals that are doing this exercise and they're allowing their foot to cave in. And what happens when you allow your foot to cave in, you're grinding on that ankle. You're not really getting much motion. I mean, yeah, you feel a little bit of a stretch in the back of your heel, in the back of your calf, but it doesn't really matter. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a nice range of motion. So range under load. So you want to get that nice pointed, that toes pulled back, under a nice planted position. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Once you've done all of that mobility, the next thing you want to focus on is strengthening it. So one of the things I think that I've really been thinking about a lot lately is, and one of the sayings that I've kind of been telling a lot of my athletes is, mobility is a permission to move. Very simply put, mobility is a permission to move. What I mean by that is you having mobility is the ability to be able to perform any task structurally, soundly, low likelihood of injury. A lot of people mix up mobility and flexibility. They think that, I'm stretching, I'm creating mobility. You are taking care of one component of mobility, is that range. The other component is strength. So pairing that ability to move under control is super important. What I think a lot of individuals should be paying attention to is that ability to control your body through that structural position, that loaded position. Now, to do that, all you have to do is really just understand foot posture. Foot posture is really simple. You guys can check out Nick St. Louis stuff from the Foot Collective. Foot Collective, you guys can check out their Instagram. They post a bunch of stuff there. I do post some foot health stuff between those things there just to establish a nice strong foot position. What you're going to want to do is do a little bit of, ankle stability work. So basically just foot stability, ankle kind of strengthening all the muscles around it by just planting your foot, staying loaded in a nice healthy position and just training, moving your body around, going up and down on your toes, doing calf raises, but under a proper position, then throwing into some landing. So understanding how to land and absorb your landing onto the ground. That's going to be strengthening the muscles that are around you. So what I mean by all of these different components, by going from stable and static and not moving to more dynamic, moving up and down to loading and basically landing, is you're really trying to take yourself through almost a rehab protocol. So learning how to control it without moving, learning how to introduce some movement, some strength, and then learning how to be ballistic and explosive on it. And that way what you're doing is you're teaching yourself as you progress through the basic way of avoiding a lot of these injuries, because you're kind of preparing your body, you're preparing that ankle, you're preparing yourself for that run. Again, prepare yourself for that run, lower likelihood of injury. So for those of you who are listening to this, who really are runners, I would tell you to throw this into your warm-ups. The reason you want to throw this into your warm-ups, you want to prevent it from happening from the start. You don't want to wait till it becomes an issue to start addressing it, because what you're going to have to do is reduce your volume, meaning stop running, to then learn these habits and start implementing this, bring yourself away from that injury and then reintroduce it and go back into it. So start now, be proactive on that. Guys, I can't emphasize that enough. If you're proactive, you will be more likely to reduce those injuries. So again, if you guys have any questions for me regarding this mobility stuff, if you guys have any questions about anything you really want to learn or really want to know about, or something that you maybe read, you're not sure about, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You guys know my Instagram. It's going to be posted down here at the bottom. If you guys haven't checked out my YouTube, if you're listening to this on the podcast, check out my YouTube channel, Bobak Owen. You can search me up there. And while you're there, maybe just subscribe. I don't know, whatever you want. No pressure. I'll know who you are, but no pressure. And for those of you who are just starting your day, have yourselves a great day, and I will talk to you next time. And as usual, keep building that foundation. Take care, guys.